Hi, my name is Amal Khalaf, and I am an independent curator that is based between London and Thailand. It's been a huge honor to be part of the Alkazi Theatre Photography Grant this year as a jury member, and the process has been truly inspiring for me. I've been able to have the privilege of learning so much about the urgencies that a variety of practitioners, be them artists, photographers, theatre makers, performers, the urgencies they've been grappling with in India. And I have a huge admiration for the boldness and diversity and clarity in which people have moved across disciplines. The Alkazi Theatre Photography Grant and the Theatre Archive itself is a really powerful and necessary model. I've not come across a grant like this before, and I feel its power really comes from the way that the grant doesn't treat either photography or theatre as secondary to one another. Theatre isn't just a subject of a photograph, and I feel like the grant is positing and offering people to think about oppositionality and think about this meeting as a critical vantage point. It's a space where frameworks are challenged and collapsed. What we witnessed in many of these proposals were practices where theatre and photography became methodologies of making and understanding one another, where actions were staged for the camera, where photography becomes part of a scene, part of its construction, part of a dramaturgy. And I feel like the proposals as a whole really casts light on these crossings and envisages dialogues across the media. It really stays with the tension of the encounter between photography and performance and troubles the idea of performance itself. I also really want to speak to a number of the proposals that dealt with disappearing ritual and performance traditions in the country. And they reminded me of the role that archiving, that photography, and that artistic practice, in fact, has in acts of resistance and ritual. I feel like many of these proposals were highly political, and the projects that were proposed in relation to the urgency of thinking about and dealing with how we preserve these disappearing rituals and performance traditions into a space of mourning, into a space of solidarity, and thinking about really the role of cultural memory, but also what form this memory can take when it comes to this moment we're in, where we're facing a homogenization and erasure of many traditions. I feel like this grant doesn't simply support projects, but really creates a context and invites practitioners to think of different ways to see, to remember, and to perform the world. So thank you to the Alkazi Theatre Archive for inviting me to be part of this process, for my fellow jurors for an amazing conversation, but especially to all of the applicants and also the winners of the grant and the runners-up. I was deeply moved and inspired, and thank you for this great privilege.
I've been working with photography, exploring creative and conceptual possibilities of how to examine public histories and kind of look at the idea of home and belonging. And not only am I interested in image making, but also what is happening to the medium itself and how it's expanding. And I think what is very exciting right now is how photography is at this point where it is interjecting with a lot of other disciplines, and it is kind of also now, being consumed and used by a whole different set of people and practices. I think that is what is very exciting. I think the grant allows for that questioning or those kind of inquiries. And because the history of the photograph in looking at theatre or looking at performance, it has had a long history, this grant can really open up questions around it. And I think that got really reflected in the applications which kind of came for the grant. I mean, I was really heartened to see the variety of applications. And the interesting part was that there were applications which kind of looked at, they were looking at documentation, like more straight off documentation of, maybe it could be of rituals and folk theatre, but there were also applications which kind of inquiries into staged images or kind of other embodied practices. So I think that was an exciting thing about the grant, I think, because of the just various trajectories of how the images, what kind of spaces it is occupying. And I think that was very exciting.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yazid Anani, and I'm a senior curator at Art Jamil and based in Jeddah. It is a real honor to be speaking with you today about Alkazi Theatre Photography Grant, an award that sits at a crucial intersection of art, history, and performance. The ambition and seriousness contained within these proposals underscore the importance of this grant in shaping how we see, document, and ultimately remember the theatre of our time. Crucially, our understanding of theatre photography extends far beyond the stage itself or the physical theatre building. We approach it as a documentation of theatrical act, meaning performance, staging, gesture, and choreography which can unfold in different social and political contexts. In this sense, the grant responds to a historical lack of sustained visual documentation by supporting photographers and artists who work through a critical lens. It ensures that the legacy and energy of performance and set design and the broader socio-political context of theatre are not lost. It transforms what is fleeting into something lasting, accessible, and historically legible. The Alkazi Grant helps secure a visual legacy of South Asian performance in all its contexts for future generations. This year's applications demonstrated four distinct and at times contrasting approaches. Together, they offered a valuable reflection on the current state of critical performance and photography today. First, we saw a segment of submissions that were strongly developed as photographic projects, but unrelated to performance. Another group of applications pursued straightforward documentation. While the impulse to record marginalized theatre and festivals were clearly and often necessarily, these proposals tended to stop short of a critical framework. They did not fully articulate why document now, how to document, or what socio-political questions that photographic act itself might investigate. A third type of application, staging, emerged as a recurring approach, but it appeared into two different notably directions. On one hand, there were applications that treated staging as a critical method. On the other hand, another group approached staging primarily as an aesthetic device. These works were often visually striking, but the staging prioritized formal effect over the choreographed, performative image grounded in a clear context of critical socio-political position. Finally, I think that the most compelling works that we came across came from applications whose consciously and critically merged photography within the language of archiving, performance, and critical inquiry. This year's submissions were powerful, and they reminded us, the jury, that our long role is not only to support those who record the stage, but those who interrogate the world that surrounds it.